Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ARK Valguero Ascended, and today I will be going over how to tame the new Ossidon. Now, a couple things you're going to need in order to tame an Ossidon. First of all, in order to tame it, you have to have the Lost Colony expansion pass installed, so make sure that you have that. You will also need some form of weapon that can deal torpor, so I have a long neck with shocking trank darts, and I would highly recommend that you bring a group of creatures with you that can handle taking a decent amount of damage, but are also relatively small. So I have a group of Deinonychus. I would recommend you bring something a bit tankier, but I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, and the Ossidon that I have is not a very high level. I believe it is a level 15, so it shouldn't be too difficult in order to go ahead and tame. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find your Ossidon, and you're going to want to clear the area out. Now, if you don't have a group of creatures to use for the taming, you are going to need to use wild creatures, so you're going to want to make sure that you don't kill everything. But if you are doing this with your own creatures, then I would highly recommend that you take out everything around here aside from the Ossidon itself. Doing this without your own creatures, I have personally found to be incredibly difficult, so I highly recommend that you try it with creatures of your own before you try it without. Now, in order to start taming, you simply just need to hit this thing with some torpor. Fortunately, it only takes one for a really good long neck like the one I have here, and then you're going to want to quickly go ahead and it will make a ball of ice, and it will occasionally shoot out ice spikes that you need to run over. And as you can see, there are two meters. There's the icicle meter and there's the dinos meter. You need to run over the specified amount of both dinos and icicles in order to finish the taming. Now, a quick warning, the level of the Ossidon heavily impacts how many of these you need. For example, this is a level 15, and it simply just needs 9 icicles and 6 dinos, whereas a max level takes, I believe it's 50 icicles and 20 dinos. So we're just going to quickly stop our Deinonychus from falling so I can hit them one more time. And there we go. It's going to kick us off. It's going to do a decent amount of fall damage. We're going to send our Deinonychus away and keep them out of the range of this thing, as it does do a decent amount of damage. And we're just going to keep shooting it until we can hop back on. I found that they seem to have a little bit of a cooldown in between being able to get back onto it. They seem to be immune to torpor, so there we go, just hit it again. And here we go. Try it one more time. And roll the ball back up and run over all of our Deinonychus. The more creatures you can get here, the better. However, it can only pick up 5 creatures at a time. Now, it will eventually spit them back out of the ice ball, so you don't need to worry about going ahead and not having 20 creatures with you for a max level. However, I have noted that the interval for picking up creatures seems to be longer. The time in which it takes to spit a creature out is long enough that getting 20 creatures within 2 minutes is almost impossible. I personally have not been able to do it, so a max level is very difficult to tame, if not potentially even impossible. So, one other thing that I would heavily warn, if you cannot perfectly do every single ride when you get on the thing's back and it rolls an ice ball and you have to pick up everything, your taming effectiveness cannot be 100%. When you hop on the Ossidon, it will lose approximately a third of its taming effectiveness, so 33%, and it cannot gain more than 33% taming effectiveness when you try to tame it. So if you can't go ahead and execute them all perfectly, which at best you will have to do this 4 times, then you will not be getting a perfectly tamed Ossidon, which is incredibly difficult, especially with a high level. I'm hoping that later on they will change the interval to how long it takes for a creature to get spit out of the ice ball, or even just how many creatures are needed in order to perfectly tame one of these things, or how many can just fit inside of the ice ball. that would be my number one recommendation for these things, as in the state that they are right now, it's pretty difficult to go ahead and get one of these at perfect effectiveness at a very high level. You kind of need to have the perfect circumstances in order to actually get this to work. Fortunately, though, if you are taming a low level, it is relatively straightforward, and it's actually not that difficult as long as you can keep the area calm, and even with a pretty high level, it's still possible. It's really just the effectiveness you're going to struggle with, so it's doable, but do not be expecting to get max effectiveness on these things, as it's very difficult, if not outright impossible, as we currently stand. So I will just quickly pick up the last one, and you've gone ahead and tamed an Ossidon. Now, I'm quickly going to head over and grab a higher level, as for much of the Ossidon's abilities, you are heavily going to need to rely on higher stats than this. So I'm quickly going to go grab a higher level, and then I will go ahead and show this thing off. Okay, just got in a max level at Perfectly Tamed, and here is the saddle, which you unlock at level 74. And as you can see, everyone decided to follow me, I guess. It's a very nice looking saddle, and these things are definitely very imposing. But they only have one basic attack, in which you simply swipe with first the left, then right, and then both claws at the same time. And I will quickly head over to this mammoth so we can see the damage that does. As you can see, it's pretty decent damage. Now, you currently can't breed these things, so you can't get imprinted ones, and you can't go ahead and get any mutations, but they're pretty powerful, so they're definitely still worth taming for the time being, and I'm very curious to see what they'll be able to do once you're able to breed them. Now, they have two abilities. They have the iceball, and they have the icicle rain. So in order to go ahead and use the iceball, we're going to simply just head over to a spot with some creatures. That wolf's going to end up getting killed, so I'll have to go find another group. There we go. I'll just quickly take out the mammoth so I can use the wolves for showing this off. There we go. Okay, so couple key notes. Your weight stat will determine how heavy of creatures you can pick up, and your stamina will determine how long you can keep the ball rolling. So we're just going to quickly go ahead, create the ball, start rolling it around. As you see, we have a limit to the size. I think this correlates with drag weight, and increasing your weight stat will help you pick up bigger creatures. But there we go, we've stuck them in the ball, and now we can go ahead and launch out some icicles, and we can pick them up, which will not only damage the wolves inside, but it will also increase the ice ball's damage. As we can see down at the bottom, our damage is currently at 120%. So we're just quickly going to go ahead and increase that number, and when the ice spikes come off cooldown, we can go ahead and shoot more of them out. I believe that the icicle amount in the barrage is just limited to the Ossidon's level. I don't think there's anything strict. And as you can see, we do a bunch of damage when they all get launched out of the ice ball. There we go. So definitely a good way of doing crowd control. The icicles themselves give off a mist which applies frostbite, which will go ahead and do some damage over time, but it will also slow down the movement speed. And the other special status effect that the Ossidon has, which you can see up in the top right, is Monstrous Affection. Now, this goes ahead and improves the Ossidon's stats when it's been ridden by its favorite rider. Rather, its favorite rider is the rider that tamed it, or the rider that has simply used it the most. I don't really know, but it will increase the stats by 0.5% per stack. As you can see, we're currently at 1 stack, and the number that is counting down is how long until you gain another stack. Now, this status will stay the same even after you put the Ossidon in a cryopod, so you can simply go ahead and just idle on whatever Ossidon you want to be using, and simply just sit on it for hours and keep growing this status effect. I don't know what its cap is, but as far as I know, there isn't one. So you can just make it stronger and stronger, and then put it in a cryopod, give it some levels, and then take it out to go ahead and do whatever you want to do with it. They're really nice looking, and I really like the Monstrous Affection. I hope that we see similar mechanics with newer creatures that will be coming out soon. But honestly, they're pretty nice. They're not too particularly useful, at least not for PvE. I can't really think of too many uses. They're generally powerful, but it looks like their main use is crowd control, with being able to apply frostbite to a large amount of enemies with the icicle barrage, and simply just trap a bunch of creatures and survivors in the iceball that you just get to roll around. So I don't personally play PvP, so I'm not really qualified to say whether or not this thing will be good in PvP. But PvE, it definitely seems to just be a large creature that you can take around and use to beat stuff up. But it's definitely very nice looking, and I'm very excited to see what these things can do once we gain the ability to breed them and mutate them, and see if they could potentially even be used for boss fights. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, farewell.